We ready? 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on the Long with FVR. Today we have Ashman. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you so much, Fabian, for inviting me.
Absolutely. Today, we still have a sunny day outside. That's the Charles River in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Next, I think you cross the river, that's Boston. And we are right here on the Roper family courtyard. So people have been asking, Fabian, when do you have the lawn? Do you have any lawn at all? This is a lawn. Now we have a lawn.
Finally, because I was saying to him before the recording, I was like, oh, finally it's a lawn for you, and this location makes sense now.
That's right. So, tell us, Ashman, a little about you.
People call me Ash professionally at work. My family call me Man. It's like Man, but in Malay we pronounce it as Man.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of two distinction. Whenever people call me Ash, I'm like, oh, that's a person from work. I was born and raised in KL, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Been there all my life, and I worked there all my life too. So right now I'm in Boston, so it's a new thing and a new change of environment. It's nice.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you were in KL, which part of KL? Because we know it's a little bigger.
Oh, so that will be a little bit tricky for me to answer because ever since I was a kid, my family bounced around. So we bounced to like in like KL and Selangor. It's like two different states, like every 5 years because my parents flip houses. So we stayed in one house for 5 years, renovated everything, and flip and sell it at a higher price. So I never kind of have like a childhood friend, which kind of like influenced me in terms of commitment as well. I don't like something like very tight committed. I think because of that as well.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were saying you were with your family flipping houses, people may say, you are flipping a house.
Uh-huh.
Is that the concept or is it a different concept?
No, it's a different concept. So what I mean by flipping the house is we will buy like a normal house, like a plain house, fully renovated it, put like furnitures and everything, and we'll sell it fully furnished, or we just sell it after the renovations.
Okay. So it's like you buy on the low and sell it on the high.
Exactly. And
Wow.
my parents always told me, always buy a house that increase in value, not decrease in value.
That's a nice concept to not only remember but also to practice.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel about this area, about Boston and Massachusetts in general? First time?
It's my first time. Kind of like a culture shock a bit with the culture and everyone here. But I was in New York a week before I came to Boston. It was a nice shift because I feel like New York was a bit more upbeat, like fast paced. Everyone was like rushing to go everywhere. Even at 4 a.m, it was still busy. But when I came here, when I first touched on here, it kind of felt like a bit more at home, a bit more relaxed. The vibe here more kind of like relaxing. It's not as hectic as New York, so I kind of love it.
Yeah, it makes sense because Cambridge is more like a college town and New York is like a big city.
Yeah.
So 4 a.m., what you were doing at 4 a.m.?
No, we had to leave Boston, New York at 4 a.m. That's why. Because we have to catch our train here to Boston.
So, okay, that's a go. You took a train to come here.
Yes.
So how was the adventure?
Surprisingly, I thought that we are gonna get lost, but we did not. It was just a straight train from New York to Boston. It was super easy. We just bought the ticket online and then we boarded the train around 6. But we came early because we wanted to be safe. And then it was just a smooth ride going to New York. You got to see all the kind of like scenery, which is nice. Yeah.
Before you were in New York, where you were?
Before I was in New York, I was in Malaysia. Yeah, I was doing the MBA. We ended our second semester, and then we were waiting to fly to Boston for our third one. Yeah.
That's an interesting story because all of a sudden, in the first year, you had the chance to do this. But before you did the program, I bet you were doing something else before.
Yes, I was.
What was the Ashman, the professional Ashman?
The professional me. Given my history to bounce around a lot as a kid, I also bounce around in jobs all the time as well. So I started my career in fashion. I was working as customer service when I started, and then they bumped me up to business development and brand. And then before I left, I was e-commerce and digital marketing exec. What I did was I kind of grew with the company in a way because I started as customer service. All I did was pick up calls, reply emails, and then they saw my potential. I was like, you know what? Let me put it in investment department. So I was tasked to like find investment for Indonesian expansion, and then they saw like, you know what, I'm gonna give you more challenge. So we were having trouble with e-commerce website. So do you want to help it? I kind of like revamped the entire e-commerce department for them, set it up. Actually, not revamp, basically set it up. Revamp the old SOP before the department. We have that department. And then, after I've done all that, I got easily bored. I left. I went to do government project. So, and I ended up in Berlin for like 3 months doing that project, which is fine. And before the program, I was doing I was working at a co-working space.
Wow.
Yeah.
So co-working, Berlin,
Yeah.
fashion, government,
Yeah.
so much to start analyzing from each. So first, when you say fashion,
Yeah.
it can be too broad. But what kind of fashion was that?
I was in we call it in Malaysia, we call it Muslimah fashion, but I understand someone might have a trouble understanding that. We call it modest fashion. It's like a Muslim fashion. In Malaysia, it's very in trend because the majority of us in Malaysia, it's Muslim. So I was doing that.
Muslim fashion or
Yeah.
modest fashion. I bet it's very different from what you see in any billboard from Gucci or Yves Saint Laurent.
I can say it's different, but my company is not only restrict to Muslimah. So we have kind of two. The couture one is like a bit more bold. So it's not entirely people wearing hats cover everything. You have people wearing skirt. We design outfit for Miss Universe for like 3-4 years. So it was a fun interaction as well.
Wow. And then you got a chance to be, okay, we talked something very nice, very entertaining,
Yeah.
fashionable, the government.
Yeah.
What was the project with the government? Were you
I
a secret
was-
agent before?
I hope I was not. So when I left the fashion company, one of the investors called me, the one from Indonesia that I helped to secure. And she was like, I heard you're leaving. Oh, you left the company. What's going on? You're gonna work with me. She kind of dictated that. Oh, you coming working with me? I'm gonna find a project for you. Let's do this. Cause she was like laying off all the projects. Okay, I'm doing this project. Which one do you want? And then I picked the government project. Because I always wanted to venture into government, and also I want to try doing government projects and also corporate project and see how it goes. Turns out I didn't like it that much. I only lasted for 6 months and I left. Yeah.
So what you didn't like about that?
So when I think we had a session, like entrepreneurship class with Professor Loredana. So she kind of like this semester she kind of nailed out like the stages in a company to grow, right? Nailing, scaling, and sailing. I realized I'm a nailer. I'm not a sailor or scaler. And sorry, what was the question again?
What was the difference? What you didn't like it about that?
What I don't like, it's like maybe highly structured because when I was in fashion, it's a small company. You could say it's a startup, but it's not really a startup. It's like growing from a startup phase. Yeah, they are actually scaling it in a bit. So I'm so used to have like interaction with the CEO, the directors. It's so easy. I can just walk into them and say, hey, I have this idea I want to do. Are you okay with this? I just present it with him that way. When I go to government, doing government project, it's different. I can't simply go to the CEO and straight away and present, right? And then it's like I have to go through the hierarchy and also the power distance and everything, which I don't particularly enjoy. Because for me, if I can talk to the CEO face to face about my idea with no barriers, that would be great and I'll be very happy.
Yeah, that's true. The power distance and how a flat organization versus a hierarchical organization dictate a lot of activities. That's
Yeah.
a lot of things going on around the world. And then you mentioned that you were in Berlin for
I was.
like 3 months, 6 months?
3 months. 3 months, I think, yeah.
Which part of the year was that? It was in summer, it was in winter?
It was in,
winter?
I think, ending winter. We're going into spring, I think.
Okay.
But when I touched down, it was negative 14. It was super duper cold. And that was super challenging for me as well.
And what kind of project was that?
It was still a government project. So the government project I did was, so my company is a contractor hired by the Ministry of Tourism Malaysia. We call it a contractor, but kind of like, I don't know how to put it, we call it as a contractor. So they hired us to construct like a pavilion structure for the international tourism trade. So what we did, they will tell us, okay, this is the concept that we wanted. Can you do it? If you can do it, propose to us, how do you expand this? For example, the project that we did is about Baba New Year. Baba New Year is what, like a sub-ethnic in Malaysia. So they wanted to showcase that kind of like structure. So what we did, I worked with the designer. The designer came from Dubai, I think. So we were working with him. But what I find challenging working with people from Dubai, especially from Middle East, because my CEO at that time, which I directly report to, is a woman. They don't take advice from women. They don't take orders from women.
Okay.
So the challenging part about the business is I had to put on like my managerial role, where at that time I was just still a junior executive. But my boss said that I couldn't handle this because they wouldn't listen to me because I'm a woman. So I won't need you. So she will just feed me information like, hey, this is the deal that I want you to get them to do. Speak to them. So I will just liaise with them. And then we appoint a contractor in Berlin itself. It's from Hungary. They don't speak English. So my role at that time was like a mediator in between two persons. I was talking to the contractor, I was talking to the designer, and at that point I was 23. I was still young, and then it was just my second job. And because it was a small company, it's a startup. They don't give you like a book. Oh, here Fabian, here's what you need to learn about the job. No, they don't do that. It's just that you learn as you go on the job.
Yes. That was a keyword. You learn through the job.
Yes.
With that in mind, what is the government project has to learn from the startups to be less flexible, right?
I think they need to be more open and like flexible. I think if you can, I don't want them to remove entirely the power distance and also the hierarchy, because I get it, it's necessary for them to function, but maybe expand the barrier a bit, like remove the barrier, lower down the barrier, so that it's easy for people to talk to you instead of like you sit up high up there and I was just looking at you up like this. It should be like eye level, and I can talk to you like this.
Talking about challenges, which was the biggest challenge you faced throughout your journey?
I hate to say this because I'm gonna validate my professor. So Professor Lorena said that the job is easy, the people is hard. I agree completely. When I reflect on all my career, it's always people who makes the jobs harder. And I learned along the way how to kind of like be more flexible. Because if you met me when I was in 2015, if you say that you can't go my way, I'll make sure to influence you to go my way or the highway. But as I grew older and I realized like there's always room for everyone to win, right? And why do I have to win all the time? And also I don't have to make life difficult for others to do their job. So that's kind of like my personal reflection.
It's true, because usually people is the main barrier.
Yeah.
It's not about the task, because in the end you can pick the phone and say how to do this.
Yeah.
You can always find someone who will say this is the way to work around.
Yeah.
But when somebody is in the middle of something, it's like, how can we circumvent this? Which is the main problem we can actually overcome.
Yeah.
And it has a name and last name, then it becomes a problem. Malaysia, you mentioned it so many times. I believe it changed throughout your life,
Yes.
right? So what do you remember from the early days of Ashman?
Early day of what?
Of you, when you were growing up,
Of me growing up.
and how different it is nowadays.
I read a book about how do you see life. It's different when you were a kid and also when you grow up. So over the years, I realized that when I was a kid, I always see so many colors. That's how I view life, right? That's how I view Malaysia. Because Malaysia is very rich in terms of culture. We have the Malays, we have the Chinese, Indians, and we have the ethnic, sub-ethnics in Sarawak. We have Sabah, Sabahan, all the sub-ethnics. So I always grew up with diversity around me. There's always people, because I went to a government school where people kind of like mix around together, all the races. So when I go to tuition center back at after, because I have to go to class in the morning. It started like morning class is like from 7:30 to 1, and I have like evening. It's like a Sunday school where I learn about the religion until 5 p.m. And then at night I will go to tuition center because I have to need tutoring and stuff like that, right? So I usually go. So it's funny because the way I see Malaysia is diverse, right? Because I went to school with mainly Malay teachers. When I go to tuition center, was Chinese teachers, and then when I learn how to read or something, I went to the Indian teachers. So you see different kind of like lenses everywhere you go, and they have a different views. Am I making a point right now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's very important, because it's not only about the diversity of what you see, but the diversity of how they think. Very important.
But I also wanted to highlight the way I view, because in my country Malaysia, because I'm a Malay Muslim, so Malay it's dominant kind of like dominant culture there. Mainly everyone is Malay, so I speak from privilege. So if I have colleagues of anyone from Malaysia watching this, who is not the same race with me, they will view in a different way. Which right now, with the help of social media, you would realize that certain things that we did as a kid was a bit offensive. But back when I was a kid, I didn't realize that. Yeah. So my kind of view kind of changed over the years when I see Malaysia. Sadly to say, I think we are progressing backwards. Back then, I think we are more open. Everyone is like one group together. But right now, sadly, if you go anywhere, you would see Chinese in one corner, Malay in one corner, and Indian in one corner. That's why everywhere I go, if you notice, after my fashion company was mainly Malay Muslim, but we do have other ethnic as well. When I left and I was working for the government projects and also with CoWorking space, I always choose an environment. I always ask them like how many percentage of Malay, Chinese, Indian do we have. I always make sure that I went to a diverse company. Because for me, if you be with the people that you're comfortable with, for example, me, I'm comfortable with the Malays, right? You won't really challenge yourself that much. You only see from one glass. And I want to see from different glasses. I learned it the hard way that certain things that you do might not be the same others doing in their culture. Yeah.
It's very important because it's through the strength of diversity that you find different angles to solve the same problem,
Yeah.
to actually make it a better solution.
Yeah.
You mentioned as well that progressing backwards is fascinating to say the least, but interesting to say the most. That something can progress backwards. Can you explain a little more?
It would be highly controversial for me to speak.
It's alright.
I don't know, because if you see on social media right now, I don't know if it's the politician is trying to divide us, because they always use a race card in every single news, every single crisis. They will use a race card. They will say that, oh, if you give in to the certain race, a certain race will become dominant. It will exclude you from power, and you won't get anything in return. This conversation has been, I think, they have been played like so many times over the years, and right now, I feel like the politicians have to change their strategy in a way. You shouldn't use a race card anymore. Because I feel like the reason why they're doing that, because they want to remain in power and make us divided. As long as we're divided, they will still remain in power.
It's something that I see other places. For example, here we are talking from a place in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's mostly a blue state, a Democrat state. What Democrats in power do is, for example, for the Latinos, you have people from Mexico, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia. They are all different.
Yeah.
But because you happen to have that Latin background, they will say, this is the Latin vote.
Yes.
You put everybody in one bucket just for the sake, this is our voting power. And it's like you have the black power, the black vote, but a lot of them are African Americans or African descendants that happen to have the voting rights.
Yeah.
And they want to focus so much on this, but they don't want to solve the main issues. One of the biggest problems of the Latino vote here is that they always call this is the most important election of our lifetime. Like, really? The most important election of your lifetime maybe was back in 2008 when you elected President Obama, because we thought back then, look at that. There's going to be healthcare, there's going to be new places for immigration bill. Nothing happened. At best, was the Dreamers Act, but it was a fair way to stop the deportation of people who had problems with the papers. And for the healthcare, it was like mostly a personal call for your health insurance, mostly like a right-wing agenda. If we look back from then, not many things have really changed, but they really want to say it's the most important. It's the most every time it's the most important. But you don't see the bills, you don't see the change. And people is like, which are my other options?
I have a question for you. Sorry for holding that. Do you think politicians needs to up their game and change the way they run their campaign? Because we see right now, as I grew up, I realized that every single country are playing the same thing. If you're saying that even in the US play the race card, if we pick on another country, it will be the same thing, right? Shouldn't you think that they should revamp the entire thing? And also one thing that bugs me the most, mostly the politicians in Malaysia. In Malaysia, they say to us back then, get a degree, then you get a job. We got a degree, there was no job for us. Even if there's job, they pay us shit. And then they said, get a master's degree if you want a higher pay. We got a master's degree. No one wants to hire a master's degree person, they couldn't afford it. And they said, oh, get a PhD so you can teach. We got a PhD, but we cannot go to any university, it's full. But the politicians, if you notice, I'm not saying everyone, some of them don't even have qualifications. I'm not bringing people down who don't have qualifications, so what I'm trying to say is politician, the thing that you say to us sometimes doesn't make sense. You can tell us to go get education, but you're not educated, and you can run the office. It's funny, no?
Yeah, it's really funny because people in power will usually try to manipulate the big collective by saying, do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, you have to lead by example. You have to show us the way. And you realize that these same people want to say, oh yes, but we need to vote in this way so we can keep making the progress. Like, what kind of work, what kind of progress, where is the evidence? But the problem is, most of these politicians usually work on hand-to-hand with the media.
Yeah.
The traditional media back then. Because if someone wants to counter the narrative, it's like, look at that. That person is which is a word for this? Conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
He or she wants to conspire against the government. It's like, no, not really. Sometimes they just find another hypothesis that has to be tested, validated, like the one you want to show with your campaign. Yes or yes. And now that we have more social media, now that we have more options, people want to see which are the other available choices.
Yeah.
And even in social media, then you begin to see censorship going on. Who is pushing the censorship? Usually the people who has been in power traditionally. So next time some politician wants to say that this is the most important election, ask them about where your work, which is your voting record.
Yeah.
You were in the Congress or in the Senate, how many times you were absent or how many times you were there.
All I can say is if you can spend 4 years to get a degree, you can spend 4 years to become a politician, to go to classes, to learn how to speak. I think they know how to speak. Maybe how to run the constituent would be very, very important, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people spend time how to speak. They should also spend time how to listen.
Exactly. That is so important. I think, because I'm doing the MBA program now, I realized that a lot of my colleagues, they are very good in speaking, but not everyone is a good listener.
Especially to listen what they don't say.
Yes.
Like, you usually hear someone reading from a pre-made statement, but to read between the lines, to read out loud what they are silencing, it's like, we know what you don't want to say. Maybe because you're pushed to not say it, or maybe there's something else.
I'm glad you brought that one up. So, because I studied communication, I majored in public relations. So, I used to write press release because I learned it in school, right? Press release, statement, and stuff like that. Every time I read a press release, I would know if it's genuine or no. It's just, I don't know, it's my gut feeling. When I read it, I'm like, I know if you're telling me the truth or you're trying to cover up something. Even if I got an email from the school, when the school trying to explain something, right? When I read it, oh, this is just a PR response.
And that's why people have the PR people.
Yes.
They are supposed to do that.
Yep. PR people are very good at spinning things. Not their way, spinning things to save someone. I would say that, yeah.
That's true. I remember back in the early part of this semester that we were doing some surveys, and you helped us. First, thank you very much about giving us some data and some feedback. I want to ask you, what was growing up as a Muslim in Malaysia, and how has been different when you went to Germany or here in the US?
This is a very not difficult question. I think a very sensitive question. Where I come from, we tread very lightly around religion. We don't talk as much. I would say in a very, very on a high level, kind of like the way I'm gonna say it. The way I view my religion, Islam, is very different from the way my country view it.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the Quran it says Islam should supposed to be simple and easy, but I feel like my community makes it complicated. Yeah, they try to impose so many kind of like restriction and things like that. When the Quran it says A, they go and do A B C D, so they overcomplicate things, right? So that's why I observe so far. I do. That's all I can say. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if, for the people who are watching this, in the previous episode we discussed with Imran also about this.
Yeah.
And he came up with an idea that was applicable also for other religions, fascinatingly enough. He mentioned that, and you can quote me because you can check the video, he mentioned that do not let your religion to stop you enjoying the life where you are here in planet Earth.
Yeah.
And that was such a powerful message in his journey that was in Johor and then in UK and now here. It's something that still resounds to me. Life has to be simple.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, like, if you ask me 5 years from now, maybe I would have a different answer. Because I mainly grew up in Malaysia, so I will just say that. Imran, I think, has the opportunity to study abroad as well. I did not. This is my first time in abroad, so I might have a different view as well. Because I realized from my friend that studied abroad, the way the view itself also is kind of different. Yeah. But I will not touch on that because it's your opinion. Yeah.
Now, something that you experienced so far,
Mm-hmm.
which are your reflections about Cambridge and Massachusetts in general? Or life in US? Is affordable? Is expensive? Tell us a little more about it.
It is super expensive. My mom told me do not convert anything to Malaysian ringgit. If you do, you will regret. You won't eat anything. It is. I think it's super expensive. I think eventually I would want to move here and find a job here, but my visa requirement prohibits me to work. 2 years from I have like a kind of a status quo for 2 years and I can return. What was the question again?
Which is your reflection so far? From the experience here, the classes, the streets, the environment?
I can reflect on the class environment. Environment, I feel like people here are more upfront. I can say genuine as well. I remember I was walking the other day. I was wearing a sweatshirt and says "Smile again." I was just walking across the bridge, and then this one lady said, "Oh my God, I love the quote 'Smile again,' and she was just dancing and smiling and singing." And you couldn't get that in Malaysia. If you do that in Malaysia, people were just, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" And then like, there were a couple of people who was just, "Oh my God, I love like the smile. Everyone let's smile." Every time I walk, like 2 people would say that. You won't get that in Malaysia. In terms of study, so I mentioned a couple of times I spent most of my time in KL, right? And I studied locally as well. Or I can say, if you ask a 70-year-old me, I don't want to study abroad because I feel like, oh, it's overrated. Everyone is studying abroad. What's the difference? It's the same education. Then I came here. Then I studied in ASB. Not only here, I studied in ASB. I realized there's like a huge gap in terms of teaching. So back then when I was studying, we go to class just to listen to a lecture, do assignment, present, that's it, go back. But I realized when I'm here, it's very like highly participative. You have to recite in class, you have to read cases, and I also do read cases, and also the professor are kind of like more open to your feedback. They value your feedback. They want to hear more and more. They want you to talk about topics that we cover in class more, compared to when I was in undergraduate, when I was studying local, right? You cannot argue with the professor. You cannot, for example, he's teaching you something, right? And you kind of disagree, right? In here, you could simply say, "Professor, I don't agree. In my opinion, you should do this and this and that." In Malaysia, it's considered rude. If you want to do that, you do that in private. You just go to the professor privately, say, "Hey, I have a disagreement." You cannot call him out like in public like that. Yeah. So I think that was kind of a culture shock. When we started the MBA program, I was so shocked. I called my friend. I was like, "I don't think I can do this." Everyone is literally talking, reciting. I mean, like, I read all the materials. I have all the answers in my head. It's just like super intense. And being an introvert myself, it is very hard to be in a big group where everyone have high energy because as an introvert, I observe a lot. I just kept quiet and observe. So that was a struggle for me. Yeah, but I kind of overcome in a way. After like a few months, you kind of get a sense of it. And I think started of term 2, it was a bit more relaxed to me. I become more comfortable to recite and ask question in class. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Well, people who are more familiar, they realize, yes, life here is a little more expensive. Like, it's not surprising to
Yeah.
find a bottle of water almost $10. Like an Evian, yeah, a little expensive. But there are always choices. That's a good thing that you might find here in US. Choices.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you go to any gas station and you find choices. If you go to other place, choices have become a little more limited. But about the environment, people is more open. People is like, they will say it on your face. It's like, I like that shirt, or this is not the way you're supposed to do it. Pivot. And the high energy debates, people can be a little,
Intense.
yes, that's the word, intense at times. But other times, sometimes they have their own agenda. And let me explain this. Some students here, in general, in the US, it's okay that they want to participate or they want to call out something, but other ones, they would only say, oh, that thing is not good because it's against the diversity or it's against the politics of our institution, therefore you should be cancelled. And it's like, wait a second. And that happens mostly in more liberal institutions. And from time to time you begin to see that the more progressive an institution is, the more of these countries are rising. Which it should be a better way to say, the more open an institution is, the more progressive and more proactive it is to answer such problems. Sometimes they have the problem of, and this is something that people will find controversial, the problem of affirmative action. Back in the 70s, when people began to get opportunities to get a job, all of a sudden, it was a business to find a PhD of color. But just to make the marks in the university. And it's like, no, we are not going to hire a faculty of color just because of the check marks. We're supposed to hire someone who is high quality, because what will come out eventually is, they will associate that color to a lower quality. And that is not supposed to be the way, which is the source Thomas Sowell. So maybe people will say, aha, Fabian has been one of those. No, I'm not one of those. I happen to read some books. And people will say, yeah, my ideas are more libertarian. Like, it's not the extreme right or extreme left. It's just more like, it's your choice. I'm not supposed to tell you what to do. You are free to do what to do, regardless of whatever you want to. And of course, if you say that to registered voters, they will say you are wasting your vote. And it's like, no, really? Because you're voting. So, people here had the chance to debate, but some of those come with those hidden agendas, and it's really hard to find out the difference between somebody who wants to talk versus somebody who has other intentions in classroom. You will see those eventually, but that's usually after the actions were done. The weather, for example, here in Cambridge, it was a little unforgiving, I have to say.
Yeah.
So much cold, so much rain, so much wind.
I'm actually shivering right now, but I'll manage myself.
Yeah. I'm also a little coldy, but I got a chance to get one of the vests. By the way, one of the sponsors, unofficial sponsors of the podcast is Eddie Bauer. It gives you the same quality like a Patagonia vest, but with a lower value. Actually, lower price, but higher value. Eddie Bauer. That's your choice. Now, going back to the weather. It's true. It can be a little unforgiving if you're not ready, because in KL it's always hot, right?
It is super hot. Yeah. So when I got here, I kind of have a culture shock in a way. The first week, I realized this. The lotion I brought a lotion from Malaysia. It was a water-based lotion. I realized in this weather you can't use a water-based lotion, because I was like I feel kind of weird because I apply lotion every day, and I was like, why is my skin so dry? And I switched. I bought an oil-based kind of body lotion here, and then the next day everything worked smoothly and everything. Yeah, so the weather can be so evil, I think I could say. But I really like because I don't like hot weather that much. I really like cold weather. I think when it's sunny and it's not windy, I would say it's a perfect weather for Boston. It's perfect weather for me. Yeah.
I support that, because even if the sun is hitting you at all intensity, if the wind is too much, it's like there is no effect in the heat. You can be even colder. Like if your jacket has some metallic things, man, that can be really hard because it gets cold very easily with the wind.
And it's so hard to walk as well. because I was with a friend over the weekend. We were walking across the bridge. Suddenly the wind started to blow. Oh my god, we had to stop for a bit because it was super intense. I've never experienced that. It was my first time that I had to stop.
It's true. Usually when I run in the mornings, I go towards the Amy Street and then I go across the riverside. I cross the Harvard Bridge and then I run again, but in the other direction towards the Esplanade and go back from the other bridge. In those bridges, the wind can be so hard that can slow you down. But now the question is how to overcome that. When you're running, you generate heat. So the trick is keep running, even with a slower pace, because you are still generating heat. And that's the only way you can overcome those things. When you're running against the wind, it can be difficult. But it's entertaining.
And also, since you mentioned that analogy, I feel like that's how I view life as well, right? So there will be a time that the wind will blow you so hard, it will be so windy that you can't walk, and that's how. But you still have to continue walking. I feel like when I'm doing this MBA, I have a moment of breakdown all the time. Whenever that I feel that moment of breakdown, I'll just ask myself, is it worth it? I say, I don't know, maybe. But in order for me to find the answers, I have to keep walking. Because the only way outside of the problem is the way through, right? So you have to walk. You have to face the rough. If not, you won't get anything in return.
That's right. That's absolutely right. There are some times that the only way is through.
Yeah.
And other times, it's better to pivot, because this is something we learn in entrepreneurship. That sometimes you don't have to be so obsessed, you need to just reevaluate everything and then pivot accordingly, which is very important at times.
I'm glad you brought that one out because the decision for me to do this MBA, because I just wanted to do a pivot. Because I always wanted to do an MBA, but it was just not the right timing. So I remember, I think it was 2018 when I first hired my boss, my manager at the time. I'm gonna mention him, Lex Arif. He's my mentor now. He was the reason why I'm here in Boston. Thanks for that. Shout out to him. Asked me what I want to do. What do you want to do in future? Like, what do you see yourself? And I told him, I remember this. We were Common Ground Bukit Bintang at a rooftop. I told him that I want to do an MBA. And then every time I want to do something, but I wanted to resign, do an MBA, the company always said, oh, okay, here's an additional benefit for you. We increase your salary, here's a promotion. So don't go. And then COVID happened. So when COVID hits, I started to re-evaluate all my life decision. It's kind of like now or never. Because I feel like at that point, during COVID in 2020, I can't get any promotion. The company already said that I won't get any increment. I have to work twice as hard and earning half, which I feel like a bit unfair. And I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna leave and do my MBA. But the funny thing is, I deferred a year, so I resigned, and I was supposed to start. I resigned in August. I was supposed to start in September the program, and I deferred a year. I took a gap year. You know why I took a gap year? Because I was tired. Because I was doing my degree part time, so I was working full time when I was in fashion and doing government project. And on the weekend, I would go class. It's like how the WP here doing it. I did it for 5 years. And I was tired.
Yeah, you literally was burning out and then some. Tell us a little about how to manage the burnout. Because you were doing this for 5 years. How it was?
I learned it the hard way to take small breaks. Because if you met me 5 years ago, I am the kind of person, I won't take breaks, I won't take holidays. Keisha will always call me, beg me to clear up my leave, and I won't clear up because I don't have anywhere to go. I always dedicate myself to work, which gives me something in return, which brought me here, which is good. But I realized along the way, I kind of like dissolved my relationship with like my family, my friends, my close circle, because I just simply don't have the time to meet them. It's either I'm too tired to go, or I just don't have the mood to go because I was already burnt out. When you reach a place of burnout, right, you just don't want to do anything. So I learned it the hard way. So what I learned is that I think before I started the program, I think a year or two, I started to do like a short break. Sometimes like a day trip helps. I take one day off, I went for hiking, I find a place, I go with my sister, and the next day I'll come energized. So take small breaks. You don't have to go like a week abroad or 1 month off to Europe. Just take 1 day off. Something fun. And I realized in this MBA, 1 hour of walking can help me to reduce the burnout. Because I don't know why I always got burnout. Doing MBA is intense. Like you get burnout every single week.
That's true.
Walking helps.
That's true. It's like a lot of people don't know when to stop.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's okay that when you are discussing with someone, it's like, it's back to work.
Yes.
We have to get to work. Okay, okay, calm down. And also to take breaks. It's like, we cannot go 10 hours without eating a lunch. We need to take breaks because then you burn the machine. It's like, when you're handling a machine, you need to maintain the machine. That's very important. That's really important. Now, you mentioned as well that you were doing this in the part-time and that you were having other initiatives. You mentioned before recording that you got an initiative with some people,
Yeah.
that you have a podcast.
Yeah.
Tell us about that one.
Okay, a disclaimer, it's not my podcast. I was just crashing their podcast. So remember during the pandemic, we were so bored that they created Clubhouse. So everyone was on Clubhouse, everyone was talking. So I started to sign up on Clubhouse, met a few people, random people. This was during my sabbatical. I took 1 year gap, 1 year off, right? So I started to talk with people. So I started to crash on this one room. It's called Answering a Difficult Question, if I'm not mistaken. So there I met my friend Faz and also Diane. So Faz is she's a business coach. She's a coach. She helps people professionally and mentally as well. And Diane is an artist. So I met them. So I always crash in their room. So asking difficult questions. So at the end of the room, we always ended the room by, okay, anyone has one question that we can pick it up in next week. So I'll just give one example. I don't have anything in my mind right now asking difficult questions. Something that you don't know what's the answer and how to ask. And then we will cover that topic. And also they have another room which is they explore about books that they read. So I will always crash. And then one day they was like, oh, you know what? We have a podcast. Do you want to crash our podcast? Or do you want to join? I was like, oh, sure. But it wasn't super, I think like a super, I really like that podcast first and foremost because it is super relaxing. It's a topic that you talk every day. How to deal with breakout, how to deal with difficult clients, and how to say no to your mom. Simple things like that. And we started to expand that kind. And also, what I like it's about the podcast is because we bring on 3 different generations. So Faz is a little bit older, Gen X, I must say. She has that perspective. Dian is a bit Gen Y, the older millennial, and the younger side millennial, also Gen Z. So you bring 3 different perspectives, right, together, and it came out beautifully. Yeah.
That's an elegant story. How many episodes you got so far?
They have a lot of episodes. I recorded not much, less than 10. Yeah, and then because at that point I was studying my MBA, they were starting the new venture. We all don't have time to like really sit down together and record. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to hear those stories again.
Yeah.
For example, I'm not sure if there is like a copyright intended there.
I don't think so.
You mentioned how to deal with breakouts. It's like when a merging is not happening and then you have to break out, or it's like a relationship between 2 people that they have to break out. What is that one?
Oh, so for me, I handle breakout in terms of, for example, so I think I can't remember how we tackle it, but we tackle in a three different segments. One is breakout at work. You break out with your boss, because I always feel when I leave a job, I'm breaking out with someone. So how do you move on from that job? And then there's another one we handle from the family side. Break up with your own family. Sometimes your own family can be toxic. And another thing is breaking up with your girlfriend or boyfriend. So we always try to bring 3 different perspectives. It doesn't have to be generation thing. It could be angles. Yeah.
That's really nice. That's really nice because it expands the concept. It expands the whole thing moving forward.
Yeah.
And we really hope that you can get that and the critical mass to make more episodes very soon. Which platform is right now?
It is on Spotify, I think, and Apple Music as well. I'm planning to start my own. Maybe because I think term 4 we're a bit more relaxed. Maybe I have more time to sit down, pick on a topic, and see. Maybe you could be one of my first guests.
That would be an honor.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all about equipment and it's all about the studio. Of course, people may ask themselves like, Why do you recording outside and everything? Is because first I don't have a studio yet, but also number two is to capture what is behind, to capture the life, what is really going on with the people, regardless of the location, which is always important.
Yeah.
Now, now that you mentioned that you got this, if there was a problem or there was always hard to get your product in Spotify or Apple, you have to pay a license. How was that?
I don't handle that part. It's my friend who handle that part. She just sent me a topic. So hey, we're thinking of talking about this a few days before, and then we have to agree collectively. If you agree on the topic, then we could just proceed. But the way we run it before, because we have Clubhouse before the room, right? We run the topic on Clubhouse first. So see if the topic got picked up, and we see if we got more people to join. If yes, then we will talk about topic in the podcast. That's how we do it. I always tell it to my friend, you want to start a podcast? Sure, go on Clubhouse. That's your topics. If your topic that picks up, then so you can record it. If people don't really like to talk about it, don't waste your time. Yeah, because people wouldn't listen to your half an hour podcast about it.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about Clubhouse, which are your recollections from that time? Because I remember it was popular and then it disappeared.
I think it's kind of like a one-hit wonder. During the pandemic, everyone was bored. Nobody wants to do anything. It was fun during that time. Even the topic that they discuss, it's so rich. I could easily find any single topic that I want. But right now, if you go to Clubhouse, I don't know. In my country, if I go, I could barely find 10 rooms. And even if I find, they're talking some random things, which is not interesting. They're just talking to your friend. That's it. Yeah, which is sad to see. So I don't know how they're gonna revamp Clubhouse in the future, because if it's a one-hit wonder, then what are we gonna do? What's the next wave of social media gonna be like, right?
Yeah, it's true. One of the new trends on social media is that they want to apply crypto to Twitter, for example. People have been buying those NFTs, but usually you can steal them because it's just a picture. Twitter has a bigger role right now to apply identity, like to verify who actually owns something. And in Clubhouse, it's like everybody's a dog until they reveal themselves. Because on internet, you only see a picture, you hear a voice, but how do you know that person is real?
I'll say this. I think Clubhouse is a live action version of Twitter. Literally, when I first got in, I'm like, why? Because I feel like people are speaking their mind, which is good. You can speak your mind. But I feel like, oh my god, is this a live version of Twitter where people can talk, anything? Sometimes people without credential can spread false rumors as well. Yeah, because I remember in the heat of COVID, there was people, the anti-vaccine people, who were trying to get people not to vaccinate and then things like that. But then when they checked the credential, the one who actually got people not to get vaccinated was nobody, was no one, not even a doctor. Which is, like you said, like everyone could be a doctor in that, and people could just believe. You could start a room. One thing I realized that in Clubhouse, people thought, I think it's everyone's social media, people thought that if your room have 100 people listening, it means that you're good, you're talking good stuff. Doesn't necessarily mean that. Even in life, if you have a lot of followers, right, a lot of people, followers in real life, followers in social media, it doesn't mean that you're doing a great job. Just me.
That's true. Quality versus quantity.
Exactly.
That's right. Now, talking about quality versus quantity, the years of life that people experience give us wisdom. So, I will ask you, what piece of advice will you give to your younger self?
I thought about this. My ex-manager would love me to say this. I think be patient. Be patient. So, I was a little bit impatient when I started career. I just wanted, by 25, I should be a manager. By 26, I should be a CEO. By 27, I should have this. Actually, no. Just live in the moment. Right now, I kind of have a philosophy. If it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter at all. But back then, I planned myself, my life 5 years ahead. I've plan A, plan B, plan C, until plan Z. But right now, I just go with the flow. If it doesn't work, okay, I'm just going to pivot and do something else. It's easy. You want something, you work for it, it doesn't work, God will show you another way. It doesn't mean, because for me it's easy. If what you wanted, you won't get it, means that it's either God is wanted you to earn it more, or it's not meant for you, you just have to divert and do something else, and don't waste your time. Be patient, it's very important. Do not rush things, because whenever that you rush things, I can speak from my experience. I kind of my first promotion, my second promotion, I rushed it because I feel like I was severely underpaid with the amount of skills and the amount of things I brought to the table. So I went behind my manager, went straight to the boss and say that I would like to earn this, this, and this. I negotiated everything and I got it. I felt very powerful. I feel like, oh, I can do this. I don't need you. And I had a private meeting with my manager. He was very respectful. He didn't shout at me or anything, but he was just like, he said to me, be patient. It's not that I don't want to give it to you, but you need more training. Which at that point, I feel like my boss loved me, my colleague loved me, I was bringing money to the company. Why should I listen to you, right? And then, karma hits me a few years after that. My subordinate did that to me, crossed me and went straight to my boss to get that promotion. So I learned it the hard way to be patient, because when you rush a promotion, you thought at the moment you feel like, oh, you're earning a lot, right? But you don't realize when you get a promotion, you also increase your responsibility. A lot of people don't realize it. When I was younger, I didn't realize it. All I wanted was to get paid more and more and more. I thought when I get paid more, this is funny when I reflect back. Back in those days, I feel like when I earn more, my job scope is just this, and I earn more money, more money. But sadly, it doesn't look that way. When you earn more, your responsibility and job responsibility will increase. I thought it was just like this, and then I just couldn't cope with the stress and everything, and then I decided to leave. Which is, if I waited for like a few months, it would be like nice, They treat me for the job. When I took over the job and I got promoted, it would be much more smoother compared to now. Yeah, that was a long answer, but yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because patience. A lot of people is not patient, and they need to realize that time has to be your friend.
I am still impatient myself, still to this day, but I try my best. I improve every day because I feel like I'm not the same person 5 years ago. I'm even not the same person I was yesterday. So it's like life is constant journey. You keep on evolving. You are not supposed to remain stagnant. And I always believe people change. In certain situations, yes. Most situations I will believe people change, but certain situations I feel like if you are given 3 chances to do it and you still fail, it's like you're not up for it. Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned that you wanted to enter this program and also enter this experience to pivot. Where is Ashman going forward?
I wanted to pivot to get out from Malaysia because I feel like I'd spent so much time. I grew up there. I grew up with Malaysia. I saw how the company progressed backwards, if I may say. And I wanted to get out. I mean, like, I wanted to explore the world. Back then, I'm not this kind of person. I don't like to explore. I feel like I don't want to see another world. I'm okay with where I'm at. Then I started when I went to Berlin, and then I realized, oh, actually it's quite nice to travel, and you see different people, different work ethic, and different kind of like scenery. And I came here, and I feel like that's nice. Yeah, so I'm eyeing to go to Indonesia actually, or Hong Kong. So I'm still deciding in between. It depends. Indonesia will be a safest bet because could speak the language in a bit. Hong Kong would be a stretch a bit because I have to learn the language. Yeah, but all I can say is outside Malaysia, not Malaysia. Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, it's like wherever you can get the opportunity to apply your skills and do it in a way that nobody interferes, either the government or some other people who believe they're their bosses. Just live your own life, live free. Because the last thing you want is that you are working so much and then your wealth is not showing, let alone transfer into your future generation. Yeah. And I believe that's another part that people is kind of missing. They are hitting the ground so much every day by day, that they don't see it around the future, because how can you care about the future when you have to care about the present? It can be very difficult, I have to say. Hey, one last thing. Summer is arriving. Any plans you have for summer?
Summer. Internship. For now. I'm also in Tawny in between internship. A few offers coming in. Stuck in between. What I mean is that the project I wanted not paying as much, but the project I don't want is paying me so well. So you always have the dilemma, right? If either you want to take experience or you want to take the money. I always go for experience. All this while, I always go for experience because in the end, I feel that I want to love what I'm doing. If I don't love what I'm doing, money doesn't matter. As far as although I got paid so much,
Yeah.
I wouldn't enjoy it. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Like make something that you learn that it doesn't feel like a job anymore.
Yeah.
That makes your future self proud of you.
Exactly.
I couldn't find a better way to close this. How people can find you?
People can find me on Twitter. I'm actually not on social media because
Okay.
kind of a bit low key. I was on social media. I was addicted to it. I always concerned about likes and everything, but right now I only have Twitter. You can find me on Ashman _ Ash and mean. People always say I always say mean things. I'm like, you know what? That's my branding. I'm just gonna own it. Ashman _ and you can find me on Twitter.
Ashman_.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you so much.
I don't know, people who are listening right there, stay safe out there and see you when I see you. Bye.